Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Not too long ago, I was able to finally go to Star Wars The Galaxy's Edge for the very first time. I was super excited. But something I found kind of odd is no sooner did the park open, the internet was already getting flooded with news articles saying that the park was a failure, and all these bad rumors were spreading around about things that would happen in the park that people just didn't like happening. And so I was very confused at how people could determine that the park was already a failure when I've seen constant vacation photos that people have posted on Star Wars fan groups on Facebook where they show the park has this high attendance, there's plenty of people around, so I just didn't know what to really think. And today I wanted to share with you my personal adventure there at the Galaxy's Edge and give you guys my opinion of the overall place and talk to you about what I think are valid criticisms that I think the park could do better on, and maybe debunk some of these rumors that I've seen pop up here and there on the internet. So let's get started. So ever since I learned that there was going to be a Star Wars attraction, my first instantaneous response was So from that point forward, I had scraped together every single dollar I could get my hands on to fund a trip there. And when I finally got enough money, I took my friend Joseph because he was also curious to see this new attraction, and we went together to go to Disneyland. And on our way there, we had talked back and forth about what our plan was going to be when we actually got to Disneyland, and Joseph thought maybe it would be a good idea for us to rest the first day and then spend the next 2 days at Disneyland so we could rest up after our trip down there. But the second I saw Disneyland, the second we pulled up and I could see the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge attraction sticking out over the walls, my resolve completely disappeared, and I was like, I really want to save money on this trip. But that's not going to happen now. Yet! So we immediately bought our tickets and we headed for the entrance to Disneyland, and I'm skipping, I'm frolicking the whole way there. There's rainbows and unicorns, there's angels singing just popping out behind me as I'm frolicking my way down the street. I'm busting a groove, dancing, I'm shimmying around people that are just looking at me like I'm a lunatic. Joseph's half a block behind me because he's embarrassed to stand next to me because I look like a lunatic who's just super excited to go to Disneyland. And so we finally get through the outer gates, we go through, and I'm dodging the crowds like Neo dodges bullets. I'm literally doing that the whole way. I haven't had this kind of energy for anything in years. It's like I'm 12 years old again and I'm hopped up on caffeine. I don't know where this energy is coming from, except I do because it's my love for Star Wars. Anyways, so we go through the park, we finally get to the area where the Galaxy's Edge begins, and we start going through, we go under this bridge, and then suddenly there's like this atmospheric music being played through speakers that has a Star Wars theme to it, and it's like, oh, it's already getting me into the groove, man. We finally get to the marketplace, and it's everything I wanted it to be. There's just so much decoration, so much detail all over the place, and as I expected, the place is packed. So instantly that was one of the first rumors that I had been hearing, completely debunked in my eyes, which was that the park was suffering from under attendance. The place is filled with people all over the place, and we showed up on a Monday in October. Everyone should be in school right now, and the place is still packed. So I don't know what else to tell you. We probably showed up at the worst possible time to disprove that the park is suffering from low attendance, and the place is packed. I don't know how else to say it. So as we're going through, I make the quick decision that we're going to spend the very first day buying everything that we want to buy so that we can just get all the buying and all the purchases out of the way immediately, so we can just have that waiting in our hotel, and then we can just spend the rest of the time enjoying the park. That fell apart basically every other day we were there when I found something new that I didn't see the previous day because there's just so much stuff to see, and I was just like, I can't leave without that. I need. Again, I really wanted to save money on this trip. That was never destined to happen. Not the second I stepped foot in that place. It sucked every penny out of me. It treated me so good though. Yes! So as we're going through the park and just marveling at the incredible amount of detail to everything, we start getting thirsty, and that's when we do come across one of the stall vendors that are selling one of the featured items that Disney's been promoting, and that is, of course, the Star Wars themed soda bottles. And these things are really cool because the brand name is printed in the Star Wars language. It's got this cool looking cap And I mean, it looks like a cool Star Wars universe soda bottle, or like a little detonator. I've heard that these are called like thermal detonator soda bottles. I mean, they don't look like thermal detonators, but they look cool. It's undeniable, and I wanted a million of them, and I bought a million of them. But this does bring us, of course, to another alleged rumor that you might not be able to bring these home with you, because how are you going to be able to fly these home with you on those who show up to Disneyland on a flight? Because how are you going to get these on board the plane? And I kind of understand the mindset that they're playing off of this, because you're not allowed to bring outside food or drinks in your bags or luggage on board the plane with you, and you especially can't bring something that could be considered looking like a bomb on board of a plane, of course. So out the gate, this could seem like an open and shut case, like you can't, like you wouldn't be able to bring these home with you, except there are very clear options that a simple Google search easily informed me that were also valid options, like checking your bag at the airport, or mailing them home, or just sticking them in your car and driving home with them. Have I mentioned that I live in Oregon? Because I bought a bunch of these and I got them all home with me without any problem. So I'm just going to say that this was a very easy rumor to debunk just by getting them home and by having it here, and it's in my hand right now. So what do you want? So during our first day there, we also wanted to try getting our own custom lightsabers built. And that was actually a really interesting process, because you can't actually just ask where you can get the custom lightsabers are, because the employees, the workers there, have an immersion policy where if you walked up to someone and you were like, hey man, do you know where you can get the custom lightsabers built? They'll go like, oh, hey, I have no idea what you're talking about, sir. But if you're looking for some scrap, you gotta go over to this location over here and talk to this person about the special scrap, and they'll set you up just fine. Now get out of here, you're going to get me in trouble. Like, go on. So, that was really cool, and it made me feel like I was actually in the Star Wars universe, and that's something I really enjoy about Disneyland, because they have that immersion policy where they keep people in character, and it just immerses you in this world, and it makes you feel like you're actually in a Star Wars settlement, and that's just super cool. So we finally found the place, and you have to sign up for a time slot to go in. And the only available time left in that day was at 8 o'clock. So it'd be late at night, so we decided what we'd do is we'd get our lightsabers built, and then we'd go ride the Millennium Falcon ride as the last ride of the night. So from there, we decided to explore the rest of the park, go do other rides, and then come back when it was time to build our lightsabers. And probably about 15 minutes before it was our turn to come up, we had an enjoyable experience with stormtroopers. Now, what happens is, if you're walking around, you can run into stormtroopers, and they can start like harassing you or talking to you or picking on your stuff. And they start picking on us, harassing us, like, hey, you guys haven't seen any rebel spies around here, like you guys look like you're kind of suspicious. And we're like, no, bro, we're cool, just please leave us alone. Don't shoot us, please. And so they start wandering off. One of them, as they're leaving, one of them decides, I've got my eyes on you. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's the fact that I was in a Star Wars universe and my confidence was just through the roof. But for some reason, as he's turning around, I say, I've got my eyes on you. And the guy stops in his tracks. And he turns around and he goes, that's a no. And he starts turning around and I just go, that's a yes. And he freezes. He does the slow Kylo Ren turnaround and he looks at me and I'm looking at him and it's quiet for a second. He goes, that's a no. And I go, that's a yes. And he goes, you're very clever. And he turns around and walks away. I'm like, yeah, punk ass stormtrooper. You don't want none. And I didn't really say that because he had a blaster and I didn't want to get kicked out. So yeah. That's just what I did. So after that experience, it was finally time for us to go inside and build our lightsabers. And I gotta tell you, that experience was amazing. Overall, it was probably my most enjoyable experience over the entire park. There's this immersive music playing, like it sounds like you're in a movie. It's just the way the music's playing, it makes you feel like you're in a movie. There's this big oval table in the center of the room, and they set you up at a station around the table. As we're waiting and they're presenting us with the parts and they give us the kyber crystals, this lady's talking about the importance of a lightsaber. As she's saying all of this, the music's swelling and it's playing off of the things that she's saying, so it just sounds more epic and dramatic. And when she starts getting quiet, the music gets quiet. And when she's like making some uplifting speech, the music swells, and it really touched me. And I was just like, oh, this is just so beautiful. I'm so into it right now. Anyways, they give us the parts and we all start building, and I put this thing together faster than everyone else in the room. There's probably 20 other people in the room, and I'm the first one to get mine done. And one of the guys who actually is going around, he stops and looks at me and he goes, have you done this before? And I say, no, this is my first time here. And he goes, you did that remarkably fast. And I was just like, because I'm a Jedi. So the lady keeps going with her speech, and she tells us to activate our lightsabers. We turn them on, the lightsabers turn on, and she tells us to raise them up to the sky, and we hold them up. And as we're holding them up, the lady's telling us how important of a decision we've made by making our own lightsabers, and how maybe at some point, someday, someone will be telling our stories about how we became Jedi or something like that. And as she's doing this, the music's swelling, and it got me. And I teared up a little bit. I actually cried a little bit. And as we're leaving, my friend Joseph saw me. He's like, dude, are you crying? I'm like, yeah. Shut up, I'm macho. Shut up. I got my own lightsaber. It was the most beautiful experience I ever had. It's really indescribable to even explain what kind of experience that was for me, because it was just such a moving and touching experience that I don't really have words to do it justice. You just have to do it for yourself. If you ever find yourself at the galaxy's edge, I cannot express enough how you need to go about making your own custom lightsaber, because the experience it'll be with you until you die. Guaranteed. But with the creation of the lightsaber, that does bring us to another one of the rumors, which is you can't have your lightsaber out while you walk around the park. Right away, I'm going to tell you, this is in no way the case. You can have your lightsaber out, you can have it on, you can walk around with it. I encountered half a dozen people that were walking around plain as day with their lightsaber out, with it on. I think they do actually have some rules and policies about what you can do with the lightsaber in the park, but they do give you a nifty little carry-on bag that you can put your lightsaber in. The only time I think you are ever really asked to put your lightsaber away is if you encounter stormtroopers who are going to harass you because you have a lightsaber, and the lightsaber represents the Jedi, which is something that the First Order is against. So it's a part of their immersion policy to ask you to put the lightsaber away, or they'll harass you about it. So if anyone feels like they weren't being allowed to have their lightsaber out, I think you might have misinterpreted the situation. That's not the case at all. There's plenty of people that were walking around with their lightsabers, but you know what? If the employees there ask you to put your lightsaber away, it's well within their right to do so. And I don't think that even if you pay for something as expensive as this was, that gives you the right to have the lightsaber out and wave it around and do whatever you want with it while you're within the park, because the park obviously has certain liabilities that they have to cover. They don't want you to accidentally whack someone in the face and break someone's nose or knock someone's teeth out because you're being a dickhead. So if they ask you to put your lightsaber away, just put it away. But it seems very clear that they don't have any strong standing rules about having your lightsaber out, because I saw plenty of people that had their lightsabers out. Footage provided as proof. So after we got our lightsabers built, we immediately got into line for the Millennium Falcon ride, and the wait was over an hour long, but because the line just kept moving, it didn't feel like we were just standing around doing nothing like, at other rides at the park. So that was nice. As we're going through the line, I am super nervous but super excited because we're finally going to be flying the Millennium Falcon. This actually leads me to not really a rumor, just a complaint I heard someone had about the ride. They were saying something along the lines of, yeah, the ride's kind of subpar because it's a lot like that Star Wars attraction over at Tomorrowland, where you just sit in that booth and the thing just shakes around while someone else is piloting it. And I remember saying to myself out loud, well, what do you expect? You're actually going to fly the Millennium Falcon? Yeah. You fly the Millennium Falcon. When I realized that you're actually piloting the Millennium fucking Falcon is when my brain snapped back to that comment the guy made, and I was just like, there is no pleasing you. You're not here to be pleased. You're just here to be butthurt because there's just nothing. Disney, do not heed any of these people's complaints, because appeasing crocodiles is pointless. They're going to eat you anyways, because there is nothing that you can give this kind of person to make him happy, because anything that you do he's just going to see it as a crime against Star Wars, specifically because it's you who did it. That is what hit me the hardest about that. So I was just sort of thrown back by that. Going through the line and realizing that I could possibly pilot the Millennium Falcon got me jacked up. At a point, we're going through the line and me and Joseph get stopped as they let a few more people through. So in my mind, the way that looked as though they're going to process all of those people and then me and Joseph are going to be the next people in line. So we'll probably be the first people to be at the front of the next group of people that they process. So I will more than likely get the position of pilot. And I couldn't believe the luck, except when we get through and we go through our processing, we end up at the back of the line that they hadn't finished processing yet. So we didn't get to be first in line. So once we got processed, I got the position of engineer, and that hurt a lot. So allow me to explain how the ride goes. It is an interactive ride. I can't express this enough. And so there is 6 positions. You have the 2 pilots, you have 2 gunners, and you have 2 engineers. Pilots pilot, the gunners gun, and the engineers restore power to the Millennium Falcon, and they shoot the harpoons that reel in the supplies. It's played up like a heist mission. For some reason, despite the fact that from the point where you initially get processed, they repeatedly tell you over and over and over again. You even get a card handed to you before it's taken so you can be processed into your right chair, explaining that you have a job to do. And every single time we did this ride, there was just someone thinking this was just an experience where you just sat there and watched and their lights are blinking, they're not doing anything, and I'm just like, I need to hit your button because you're going to kill us all! I freaked out a little bit. There was this little girl in the pilot seat who was missing the opportunity to hit the hyperspeed lever, and I almost had an aneurysm because I was going, get out of the seat! You don't understand what you're playing with! I'll kill you! No, I won't kill you, but you know, it's just, it's a hard thing to say because you're in the pilot seat and you're not doing your job! You know, we did the ride. It was super fun. Even when it was just pressing buttons and flipping things, I mean, you're flying the Millennium Falcon. That was amazing! But unfortunately, I had my hopes up and bent on being pilot. So when I didn't get the position of pilot, it sort of disheartened me. And after we got off the ride, the park was about ready to close, so we made for the exits. And earlier that same day, I was frolicking to go to Disneyland. But as I was leaving Disneyland, Joseph was like a block ahead of me and I was lagging behind. And, you know, Joseph comes back. He's like, "Are you okay, buddy? You lagging behind a little bit?" I'm like, "Yeah." Joseph had to deal with me sighing and moaning and groaning the whole way back to the hotel. And it was there I made the decision that there was only one logical solution to potentially be one of the first people in line so that I can be pilot. And that was, I had to be at Disneyland the next morning before anyone else was there. So I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning the next day. The park opens at 8. By the way, and by the time I actually got to the outer gate, it was still dark. There were stars in the sky, and I stood out there and literally watched as the night shift crew left and the day shift crew arrived and then started setting up the outer perimeter gate, and I was the first person. They processed through the outer gate and I was the first person standing at the inner gate waiting for the park to open for like 3 more hours because the park opens at 8 o'clock sharp. I wait out there for a few more hours. I literally watch as the sun comes up and more people start arriving. They start lining up behind me and start lining up at the other areas that the gates will open up so they can be processed first through. But I will still be one of the first people into Disneyland no matter what. And as I'm waiting, some people line up next to me and I end up having a conversation with one of the people in line, and his name was Bobby. And I told him what my ordeal was the other day and we palled around, had a good time. But what I found most valuable though was that Bobby informed me you can actually ask for the position of pilot. So if this stranger could be believed, even if I didn't make it in first, if I could ask for the position of pilot, all of this waiting will have been worth it no matter what, because I will be able to ask for the position of pilot and then I'll be able to get the position of pilot and I'll be able to pilot the Millennium Falcon. So it's a win-win no matter what. So I deprived myself of much valued sleep and I got my money's worth. Yeah. So a little while later, the crowds, the masses, they all start lining up behind us. It's still early in the morning, and it gets to about 7:30 when they finally open up the inner gates of Disneyland, and we just swarm through. I get to about the middle of Disneyland, where they have the statue of Walt Disney, where I see they have a rope roped off half the park to stop the masses. And I run into this rope and I'm like, why is there a rope here? Well, it's 7:30. The park opens at 8 o'clock sharp. Now, the 100,000 people that were previously being slowed down by the inner gate now have the opportunity to catch up, and now they're all right behind me. And I actually remember one of the people being like, man, you were doing the Tom Cruise run. You were just... I was like, you're goddamn right. I'm going to the Star Wars land. I'm getting to be the first person in line for the Millennium Falcon ride. You bet your ass I'm doing the Tom Cruise run. As we're waiting, as the masses pile up behind me, I'm just standing there nervous because now the likelihood of me making it to as any one of the first people in line for the Millennium Falcon ride quickly shrinks, but I'm still optimistic because I'm determined, because I love Star Wars and I'll do anything for Star Wars, even outrun 100,000 people and push my body to limits I've never gone before. So it goes on the intercom that the park announces its official opening and then we're allowed to swarm through. And I book it. And I am sprinting as hard as I can, and somehow, some way, I'm beating the people behind me. For those of you who do know, and for those of you who don't, I'm booking around I think it's called Tom Sawyer's Island. I'm going around the left side path towards what I believe to be the front entrance to the Galaxy's Edge, because I didn't know or realize that there was a back entrance that will come into play later. And I look back and there's no one behind me. I just keep going. I make it to the marketplace. It's completely deserted. For the people who want to claim that the park is suffering from under attendance, you are technically correct for the first 15 minutes that the park is open before the masses get there. And because I was able to sprint faster than anyone else to be what I thought at the time was the first person there. And I come around the corner to where the Millennium Falcon ride is, and there's already a giant line that is snaking its way through the park. I've missed my opportunity because apparently there is a rear entrance that is right behind the Walt Disney Castle. So while I went left and essentially took the long way to go through the front entrance, everyone just went straight into the Star Wars attraction and went straight for the Millennium Falcon ride. So I failed, and that was probably the biggest disappointment I faced while I was there. So I decide, regardless of my failure, I'm going to make it to the back of the line because I still have that final hope I might be able to ask for the position of pilot. So the only way for me to ask is to get in line. And as I start going down, I get about halfway before I hear someone call out, and it's Bobby, and he's standing there with his friends. He's like, hey man, did you make it to the front of the line? I mean, you were sprinting. I lost track of you. And I inform him that I took the wrong way and I didn't make it. So I'm making my way to the back of the line. And he goes, hey, get in with us. I'm like, okay, so I get in line with him and his friends, and as we're going through, me and him just start talking about our love for Star Wars, and I mean, it was everything I think a fandom should be about, where it's just two people with a genuine love of a franchise where we just talk about what we love, we express our amazement of the place and what our hopes are for the future of Star Wars, and we just talked the whole way. It made an hour feel like 15 minutes, and we just talked the whole time. And when it finally came time for us to get our positions in the ride, I got the position of gunner and Bobby got the position of pilot, and he knew how much it meant to me and he gave me the position of pilot. So Bobby, if this video ever makes it to you, I can't express enough what you gave to me that day. So it was mad respect for you. I'll never be able to repay that kindness. You did the fandom proud that day. Thank you. From one fan to another. You are a great person. I'm almost getting a little choked up just talking about that, because I don't think anyone could possibly fathom what that meant to me in that moment. I got to pilot the Millennium Falcon and it was everything I wanted it to be. I later hooked back up with Joseph, who was still flabbergasted that I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning to stand outside of Disneyland in the dark to wait for it to open, and we enjoyed the park for the remainder of our time there. I just have to tell you, the overall experience, it was everything I wanted it to be. The level of detail they have in the place is just unbelievable. We spent 3 days there, and I'm fairly certain I saw something new every single time I was there, and we spent the majority of our time there, several hours each day just there, and I always was seeing something new, and I just kept finding new things. I was like, I need to buy this because I need that. I'm going broke. I don't give a shit anymore. I want this thing. I'm going to take this thing. But if I could offer any kind of criticisms that I think are valid. If by any kind of miracle this video could just make it to the right people to hear these complaints and maybe do something about them. But first and foremost, I had this problem with one of the hats that they were selling there, which was this really cool rebel style hat that had the top of it, the top part of the hat was made like this ribbed area here on my shirt, but it was like that on the top of the hat, and it was really cool. I really wanted to buy it, but I decided not to because I tried to put it on my head and it wouldn't fit. It was just way too small, and it was an adult size, and I don't think my head's that big. And even when I brought this up to the lady selling it at the stall, even she at the moment was like, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure there's like an elastic thing or something adjustable in there. She's like looking it over, and word for word she goes, huh, that's weird. I guess there isn't. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of weird, right? Like, you'd think they would have made it like adjustable, right? She's like, yeah, it's unfortunate. So I didn't buy the hat because it was just way too small. If you could do something about things like that, where you could make the hats adjustable by adding maybe an elastic band in there or something, just to make it more flexible, make it a universal fit hat, that'd be really cool. Please do that, friend. Next, I think they aren't selling enough Star Wars themed clothing. I'm not talking about like clothes that have pictures of Star Wars on it. I'm talking about like what I'm wearing, like Star Wars themed clothing. I think they need to invest more in things like that, because Star Wars clothing looks really badass and cool, and it would just be awesome for them to have it. Which does kind of bring me to one of my next complaints. Why in the hell is there not a Galaxy's Edge website? Help me, please. I have an urge to buy your stuff. Give me a place where I can buy it bits at a time. So I will give you all my money, Disney. Just give me a Galaxy's Edge website, please. And something else I think the park could actually benefit from is that they have a custom lightsaber building workshop area. Why not have a custom blaster building workshop? Now, I know that could be pretty sketchy to do. You know, it might be really hard to pull something off like that, especially in California, where I think they have pretty strict gun laws and everyone there's a little on that kind of thing. But I mean, honestly, to build your own blaster would just be amazing. You know, have all I mean, they have so many different types of blasters. You could work it out just the same way as the lightsaber thing, and just be another bit of revenue you could just exploit to bring in more cash. That's all I'm saying. Make custom blaster building. Make custom blaster building. I know for a fact they are selling Star Wars style Nerf blasters, so I have no idea why they wouldn't make a custom blaster building thing where you could have like, you build it up like one of these, and then it, you know, it has the cool sound effects, it's movie quality looking, and it's awesome. Do it, Disney! Come on! And really, to wrap all this up, I have to say, based on everything I've seen, I've no reason to believe at all that the park is failing in any way, shape, or form. I will admit that I have no real idea what goes into making a successful attraction to a theme park, but based on what I've seen, what I think are the requirements are high attendance, check. The merchandise is being bought up in droves, check. The one ride that they have for that attraction is constantly packed and is over an hour wait every single time, every single day. I just don't see how, with all three of those factors being checked off, how the park could possibly be failing. And it does lead me to believe that the only way I could actually think that this park is failing in any way, shape, or form is that it is failing to meet what I believe to be the unreasonable and unrealistic expectations of people who pretty much believe the park was dead on arrival. Like, they had no interest in really seeing the park. They just hate it because it's being made by Disney, which is unfortunate because the place is clearly giving so many people so much joy, and for people to just be so, I'm just gonna say it, butthurt about it, it just feels kind of immature. If you can't let that go, don't go at all, because it'll just upset you, and it's just, you're going to poison yourself. So just let the people who are going to enjoy it without trying to ruin the joy that they're getting from it. I mean, just because you're not getting the joy doesn't mean you should ruin other people's enjoyment of it, right? So anyway, that was my time at the Galaxy's Edge. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed my story. If you like this video, give me a like. If you want to see more, give me a subscribe, and I hope to see you in my next video. See you guys. Have a good one.
Yep.